Hey guys, Pastor Pete here. Hope you're doing well today as we jump into Mark chapter 15. I want to thank you for joining us this evening to take a look at that. In Mark chapter 15, there's a lot of characters in this small little chapter. It's huge with information, but there are a lot of characters, a lot of action that's going on. It's almost like it's a historical lesson, but it's a present lesson, which gives us a future hope. And so I invite you to take a look at Mark 15. I always encourage you to read it for yourself. And when you get a chance to read through this particular text, because we find here that Jesus has been arrested. We looked at it last night. He'd been spit upon, blindfolded. He'd been punched. He'd been beaten. There were a lot of characters in Mark 14 as well. But here in Mark 15, as he was arrested, he was brought before Pilate. Pilate is the Roman governor of the day. And he was more of a judicial, played a judicial part in this and in helping the people to make a decision about what to do with Jesus. And so his first question, are you the king of the Jews? Are you what they say? Are you this? And Jesus, so calmly, well, you have said so. And we find that as we go through this chapter, as Jesus is asked these different questions, and aren't you going to answer? Pilate's like, come on, you got a chance to save yourself. Aren't you going to answer? Look at everything they're accusing you of. Come on, Jesus. Give me something, or I'm going to have to go out there and let the people choose, basically. And so, but he stayed silent. Jesus stayed silent. He didn't make a reply. And we find that on that particular day, there was a man called Barabbas who was he was in prison, and it says that it came up that, who do you want me to release? Okay, do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews? Do you want me to release to you Barabbas? But come to find out that the church, and I call the chief priests the church, the religious folk, they were like, crucify Jesus. Now they got their chance. Crucify him. You know, he's out here preaching this stuff that people can be healed and delivered and saved. And he's doing it out here among the crowds. He's not in the temple. He's not following our religion. He's not following our rituals. He's out there just trusting God. What's wrong with him? And the people chose Barabbas, interesting enough. And so Pilate was like, well, the people chose, so he handed Jesus over to them. And it turns out that Jesus was flogged, and he was handed over and crucified. And so we see that there's a lot of mocking that begins to go on. You know, hey, yo, Jesus, you know, you could save these folks. Why can't you save yourself? You could deliver these folks. Why can't you deliver yourself? And it talks about how that they continued to mock him and dividing up his clothes. And it says they cast lots to see what each of them would get as far as his clothes. And it says it was 9 a.m. when they crucified him, and they gave a written notice of the charge against him, and it says the King of the Jews. Now, I say that there's a lot of characters in this particular story, because we have Jesus, we have Pilate, there's a lot of presence there, a lot of energy coming from all different sides, and we see that the chief priests are there, the crowd is there, being stirred up by them. Barabbas was there. I mean, here, now this murderer is about to be released, okay, or was released. We got the soldiers there. We got Simon of Cyrene. We find out that Simon of Cyrene was there to carry the cross. He was just walking home from work, it says. And they kind of recruited him to carry the cross, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it says that a certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way. And other translations say he was coming from work, from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. And so I'm just picturing this man, okay? Jesus is beaten, broke down, and bloodshed everywhere. And so they're asking Simon, you carry his cross. He can't carry his cross. You carry his cross. Oh my goodness. What a privilege, yet a pain too. You know what I mean? Like the weight of it now resting with him to get it to where it needed to be. And so I'm picturing this rolling in my mind like a movie, and watching all this stuff unfold as people continued to just yell and mock and say all this trash, is speaking trash to Jesus. And so you got Simon, and then two rebels were due to be crucified on that same day, one on his right and one on his left. And so they were in the picture. And you also have the teachers of the law were there. Remember the teachers of the law? They were the ones like, yo, Jesus, what's the greatest commandment, you know? And he's speaking love to them. People who would later, he just continued to speak love, but there were people who were later that were going to charge him with that. And so there were women there. There was Mary, his mother. There was Mary Magdalene. There was Salome. There were other women there. There was Joseph of Arimathea once he was crucified, and it was time to, it was the approaching Sabbath, and it was preparation day, so he couldn't stay up on the cross. And there was Joseph of Arimathea. He says, a prominent member of the council who was himself waiting for the kingdom of God. And he went to Pilate and he asked for Jesus's body, and so that he could anoint him and lay him in a tomb. And so there's all these people, there's all these characters in this particular chapter. But the one thing that totally stands out to me, and as I listen to your videos, I'll be listening to what stands out to you. But in this passage, that once he breathed his last, okay, I want to go back up to there. Once he breathed his last, it's verse 37. It says, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Whew. The curtain in the temple was torn from top to bottom. That has always just stood out to me, because by his obedience, by his fulfillment of his purpose, we all, without exemption, all is the all of all people, Jews, Gentiles, it didn't matter, people that don't even believe. You have access to God by his obedience, by him fulfilling his purpose. So I see the veil in the temple is like a character in this story, because once he breathed his last breath, once he departed from things temporal, once he departed from earthly things, he stepped into the divine, because now the temple is torn. The veil is torn and access happens. Now, if we think about that, this particular veil, when we go back to Exodus, when it was first made, and God was designing the temple, and even as we fast forward to what was going on in the temple of that time, okay, it was the tabernacle back in Moses, and the temple now in this time, we find that the width of it was as a man's hand. It says it's about 4 inches. So this veil, this curtain, is hugely thick, and it says it's like it is like 60 feet high. 60 feet high, 4 inches thick. This thing is huge, and probably beautiful, because it said it was blue and purple and scarlet, and it was made of fine twisted linen. This thing was massive, and it provided the separation between the holy place and the Holy of Holies in the temple. Okay? And so no one got into the Holy of Holies except for once a year on the Day of Atonement, the high priest went in there to atone for everyone's sins. But I get this, that this veil, torn from top to bottom, how that just represents us. Okay, torn from top to bottom, changing our thinking, therefore changing our life, changing our thinking and our words and our heart, changing the way we approach God, no longer from an earthly place, but from a spiritual place. Okay, it was like divine purpose in that moment met human understanding, because this whole story here in Mark 15, there have been so many misunderstandings along the way, right? The Messiah, the suffering servant, the will of God, the will of the people, an inward expression versus outward appearance and expression. Christ, the Son of the living God. And then there was Barabbas, whose very name means son of a father. And here's Jesus, the Christ, son of the Father. Whoo! I mean, that's just so exciting to me, that when he fulfilled his purpose, when we fulfill our purpose, there is access, okay? We have access to God now, yet when we fulfill our purpose, it's access to God in a way we perhaps have never experienced before. My encouragement to you today is to read back through this, but more so than that, know this. It doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done, who you've ever been with. Know tonight that you, by the grace of God and the fulfillment of Christ on that day, you have access this day to all that God has purposed you to be and to do. I encourage you, just tear that curtain down and walk through it. Know tonight you are loved greatly. You have access to God. Walk in it. I love you. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.